Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Poirot Solved It. But the truth broke him. A fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The enigmatic guest emerges. The wind howled through the ancient trees that flanked the old manor, each gust howling like a lost soul seeking refuge. Lightning split the heavy sky, as if nature itself recoiled at what lay within the dimly lit drawing room. In that hour, at the far end of the creaking hall, a figure lay sprawled upon the casual elegance of an antique Persian rug, eyes wide open, a soft gasp, muffled in death. The stillness was chilling, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder and the rhythmic tick-tock of a gilded clock that seemed to mock the serenity it had once embodied. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of chaos, savoring the sweet scent of mystery that hung in the air. "Ah, mon ami, the game is afoot," he mused to himself, his mind sharply honed to every detail of the scene. The victim, Lady Beatrice Carrington, was not merely a society matron. She was a woman with myriad secrets, and they all clung to her like cobwebs. Her delicate fingers were entwined with a cherished locket, one that could have housed a lover's portrait, or perhaps one best left forgotten. Yet it was the expression etched on her face, an unsettling blend of surprise and despair, that intrigued Poirot most. She had not simply died, she had been ensnared by an unseen terror. As shadows danced across the room, Poirot gazed at the three guests who remained within the manor, their faces pale against the flickering candlelight. First, there was Reginald, the victim's estranged nephew, whose reputation as a debauched aristocrat preceded him. With a penchant for gambling and a mounting debt, he had returned to England under the guise of family loyalty. A rather desperate man, is he not? Poirot pondered, noting the way Reginald's hands trembled ever so slightly, betraying a facade of indifference. Next was Lady Agatha Mortimer, a sharp-tongued socialite whose piercing gaze burned with both ambition and envy. Her jealousy of Lady Beatrice had long been an open secret in their circle, and now, with her rival's lifeless body sprawled before her, Poirot could see the way her lips pressed into a thin line, a storm of emotions battling behind her composed exterior. Ah, the human heart! It hides many things, mon ami, he reflected, his intuition grappling with each woman's complexities. Lastly, there was Gerald Avery, the aloof family attorney, a man whose cool demeanor struck Poirot as eerily impenetrable. He seemed inexplicably drawn to Lady Beatrice's remains, his dark eyes flickering with what could only be construed as regret or perhaps guilt. Gerald's own past, entwined with the Carrington family, raised countless questions. "What debts do you owe, Mr. Avery?" Poirot murmured, absorbing the tense atmosphere as if it were a fine wine. As the storm raged outside, Poirot insisted they remain in the manor, a decision met with whispered protests, but ultimately obeyed. "Murder does not take a holiday," he declared, "and though the winds may howl and lightning may strike, we shall find the truth within these walls." The investigation commenced with an air of gravity as Poirot began to weave through the nuances of each character, seeking the threads that would bind them to the tragedy. He began with Reginald, whose answers were riddles wrapped in bravado. "I have no use for my aunt's wealth," he scoffed, though his eyes darted to the locket glinting under the candlelight. Poirot noted the way Reginald clutched his wrist, where a watch once lay, a habit revealing deeper anxieties hidden beneath the surface. Next, Poirot turned to Lady Agatha, whose scornful retorts cloaked her vulnerability. Jealous of a dead woman? Never. She was pathetic, she spat, her voice rising in pitch. Yet Poirot saw through the facade. There was fire in her disdain. But what lay beneath? A hidden longing, a secret that threatened to consume her. Lastly, Poirot approached Gerald, whose demeanor shifted as the questions grew sharper. "I merely dealt with her affairs," he insisted, yet his animosity towards Lady Beatrice would shimmer through his words like lightning through clouds. "Do not presume to know my mind, Monsieur Poirot." Yet Poirot saw the way Gerald's fingers strayed towards the locket, drawn as if by an unseen pull. Each suspect shifted like shadows in a dim corridor, and Poirot felt his confidence falter for mere fractions of a second, only to catch himself. The gold standard of deduction was more than just intellect. It was instinct. As the storm reached its zenith, and the tumult outside matched the confusion within, Poirot gathered them in the drawing-room once more. The flickering candles cast tall shadows on the walls, and he seized the opportunity to reveal the clues he had collected. "Lady Agatha, what was your relationship with Lady Beatrice, if I may inquire?" he asked, his voice a careful caress. Her eyes flashed with anger, each word like a dagger. Yet Poirot caught the slight hesitation, the way she glanced at the locket. Perhaps it would be more prudent to examine if anyone in this room had the capability to thoroughly disguise their motives, he suggested, casting a sweeping gaze around those gathered. Suspicions swelled. Mistrust filled the saturated air, tightly coiling around each suspect, taut as a noose. Poirot's mind raced, each detail fitting together like pieces of a well-crafted puzzle, until a misdirection emerged. He had momentarily lost sight of the real anomaly. In his calculations, Poirot had overlooked a vital piece of the puzzle, only to find it lurking too close to home. The attorney, Gerald, had misrepresented matters surrounding Lady Beatrice's will, a vital insight overshadowed by the heated exchanges. Perhaps Reginald was not the only one with something to gain from her demise. The determination surged within Poirot, the keen realization grasping for clarity amidst the chaos. In the rich tapestry of deceit and hidden emotions, Poirot unspooled the final threads, a shocking betrayal born of ambition intertwined with jealousy. Darker than the storm that resumed outside, the truth emerged with the grace of a swan, slicing through murky waters, unveiling not just the murderer, but the very essence of betrayal pursuit, deeper than mere greed. The final revelation fit together seamlessly. Gerald, driven by unspoken love for Lady Beatrice, caught in the throes of his ineffectual yearning and devastated vision of her life. "And so you see," Poirot concluded, the air thick with disbelief, "it was never about hatred, but about love. Twisted, complex, and ultimately tragic." The room fell into a pensive silence, the weight of the truth crashing upon them like thunder. The dramatic irony of it all echoed, piercing through the despair like a breath of fresh air as Poirot left the room in stillness, the storm outside finally giving way, leaving echoes of secrets buried beneath the candlelight. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadows. The winds howled outside, echoing the unspoken dread that enveloped the old manor, now burdened with the weight of unfulfilled secrets. As another flash of lightning danced across the night sky, a shroud of darkness descended upon the drawing room, casting elongated shadows that swayed like spectral figures in the corners of the room. The flicker of the lone candle sent shivers down the spine, for there was a palpable tension now hanging in the air, thick enough to quell even the most brazen heart. Amidst this backdrop of foreboding, Hercule Poirot stood, arms crossed, his sharp gaze surveying the faces before him. Just days after the horrific demise of Lady Beatrice Carrington, the manor's atmosphere felt considerably darker, as although the dawn had not yet arrived, it bore a weight heavier than night. Various eyes looked to him, filled with trepidation and expectation. Here ruled despair, intertwined with something more sinister, a whisper of betrayal that extended deeper than mere desire or jealousy. Standing closest to him was Reginald, the young aristocrat whose face still bore the pallor of grief, but whose demeanor revealed an unsettling mix of resentment and cunning. Rumor had it that a fortune had been promised, and with Lady Beatrice's death, the estate would likely fall into disarray. His voice trembled, but held a sharp edge as he retorted, "I shall not be accused of murder simply because I am next of kin." Poirot noted the twitch of Reginald's fingers, a detail insignificant to most, yet to Poirot it told the tale of anxiety and fear that resided beneath the bravado. Then there was Lady Agatha Mortimer, eyes glittering like daggers, a mask of collectedness barely veiling her fury. Do not misunderstand my absence during the night of her death as indifference. I simply had engagements that could not wait, she claimed, yet her words held an undercurrent of weakness, a fissure barely concealed. Poirot had often discerned that the strongest masks usually wore the thinnest fabric, and Lady Agatha's pretense of smoothness hardly obscured the storm raging beneath. Standing slightly apart was Gerald Avery, the family attorney whose silence spoke volumes. He had been seen prowling the garden late at night, concealed in shadows, but to his credit, he had presented the most thorough testimony concerning the confusion surrounding Lady Beatrice's affairs. Yet the shadows shrouding his intentions felt all too suspect. Is not the estate more than her mortal coil? Must we only seek blame in flesh? His indifference was chilling, suggesting a truth veiled beneath cold reason. As the storm raged outside, the three guests gathered once more in the drawing room, an unspoken consensus that the manor would become a prison until the murky depths of Lady Beatrice's death elucidated themselves. Poirot turned on his heel, surveying the disheveled remnants of the elegant room, and considered the fragments that lay scattered before him, a broken vase, splintered glass strewn across the Persian rug, as if desolation had taken root in the manor itself. He began, "There are many curious shadows that flit about this space, yet perhaps the brightest light shall cast the longest shadows." His voice retained its calm authority, yet with an unsettling edge. Each syllable struck the air like a tolling bell, bidding silence in its wake. Poirot turned his gaze to each individual as he began a careful examination of their alibis, disturbing the still waters of their carefully curated personas. Reginald supplied elaborate excuses, but stumbled when acquainted with specific inquiries. "I had only briefly visited my dear aunt that evening. She seemed unwell," he answered too swiftly, the quivering of his hands betraying him. Poirot simply nodded, observing the way his foot tapped incessantly upon the floor, an involuntary cadence of betrayal. Turning his attention to Agatha, Poirot scrutinized her actions, noticing how she flinched when he probed about her relationship with Lady Beatrice. It was known, was it not? I held no love for the woman, but to suggest I would harm her? Absurd. Yet her voice contained a shrill undertone, as a caged animal desperately striving to appear unperturbed. And yet jealousy often leads to rash decisions. Ne pense pas, he replied, watching her swallow hard. The depths of human weakness widened with the inspector's next inquiry toward Gerald. You lingered outside on the eve of her death, Mr. Avery. What were your intentions? His words hung in the air like a promise of revelation. Gerald's eyes darkened, the flicker of candlelight revealing momentary panic. I was merely attempting to reflect upon my professional relationship with Lady Beatrice, he managed to say, but Poirot noted his fidgeting, the way his face grew tight with strain. Hours trickled by, and Poirot gathered them again in the center of the drawing-room, shadows lengthening, the air thick with trepidation. The complexity of this tragedy lies not only within the act itself, but also within the very motivations that veil truths deeper than mere animosity, he remarked, before proceeding to lay out the futility and follies of human emotion. Yet, amidst the threads of guilt and envy, a sudden insight struck him like a lightning bolt, illuminating the depths of insidious deceit. Perhaps the one who stood deceived was Poirot himself. In his keen analysis, he had overlooked a significant detail, a subtle red herring strategically placed amid the many emotional scars left by Lady Beatrice's death. The locket she clutched tightly during her end was not simply a piece of jewelry, but contained more than memories. It harbored a scandal that entwined them all. The revelation of a falsely perceived suicide that would have shattered the Carrington legacy. As Poirot began to connect the dots, he paused, the reality crystallizing with a dreadful elegance. It appears that love, mon ami, can cloak itself in the garments of adversity. The very thing that binds us also suits us with our shackles. The air crackled with the weight of his realization, each suspect frozen in place, the dappled light exposing the treachery of their souls. The final twist unfurled itself before the startled eyes of the guests as Poirot revealed that it was not a question of jealousy nor hate that led to Lady Beatrice's demise, but a coordinate of pride woven with desperation. Gerald had attempted to protect a hidden truth, one which Lady Beatrice had threatened to unveil. In a moment of stormy rage, she had unveiled it in her final breath, igniting a tragic flame of retribution from a heart that had carried buried love. Gerald, hidden beneath his professional demeanor, was revealed as her lover, a tumultuous affair cloaked by the abyss of society's judgment. As the shadowy truths emerged, Poirot paused, letting them sink in, the silence punctured only by the distant crash of thunder. And so, my friends, we stand here not merely witnesses to a tragedy encased in shadow, but to a most poignant reminder of love twisted in desperation, leading us not to clarity, but to ruin. With his words, he released the fragile equilibrium, binding together the loose threads of revelations that danced under the candlelight, shadows of betrayal, carving their marks indelibly upon their souls. Chapter 3. The Stolen Heirloom. The shrill scream shattered the oppressive silence of the Carrington manor, echoing violently against the walls, as if the very structure bore witness to an unspeakable horror. Poirot glanced up from his reflections, his heart quickening as a vision of Lady Beatrice's pale visage flashed before him like a lingering spectre. The scream came again, this time mingled with frantic footsteps racing down the marble hall, shattering the cloak of night with panic. An heirloom, a symbol of lineage and pride, had vanished, leaving behind a trail of bewilderment and fear. Within the flickering candlelight, Poirot's mind sharpened, for he knew that covetous hearts and desperate souls danced perilously close to the edge of sanity when the promise of wealth lay before them. He swiftly moved towards the source of the chaos, his presence commanding immediate attention as he entered the drawing room. Reginald, the young aristocrat, stood palm pressed against the frame of the door, his face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's gone, Poirot." The Carrington emerald, Lady Beatrice's cherished heirloom, vanished. The room was filled with the heavy scent of wood polish and wax, the shadows flickering ominously against the walls, weaving a tapestry of unease. Gerald, the family attorney, stood rooted to the spot, a mask of feigned shock plastered across his features. Lady Agatha Mortimer perched on the edge of an armchair, her fingers gripping the upholstery tightly, revealing the tight coil of anxiety that lay beneath her composed facade. Each of them bore fragments of grief and a veil of guilt, but beneath that, the embers of intention flickered brightly. Poirot surveyed the chaos. A storm brewing outside cast erratic shadows, creating a surreal theater of radiance and obscurity. "Tell me everything," he commanded, his voice steady and enveloping. Reginald sputtered, "We gathered here, all of us, to speak of Lady Beatrice's will. Yet when I returned to her room this moment, the emerald was gone. How could such a thing happen? She took every care to keep it well guarded." A potent truth lingered within the air. The emerald was not merely a token of wealth, it embodied the very spirit of the Carrington family. Poirot's observation of the room revealed the subtle signs overlooked by others. Reginald's trembling fingers, the way Lady Agatha's gaze flickered towards Gerald, and Gerald's peculiar calmness all pointed to unseen currents, twisting and turning, seeking to ensnare him within their web of deceit. As Poirot began his inquiry, the threads of each character's story unraveled before him. Reginald, burdened by familial obligation, had long desired the emerald to restore his perceived dignity. His staunch facade now faltered under the weight of heightened emotions. Lady Agatha, once beloved by Lady Beatrice, now stood at odds with her purpose. No longer the favored niece, she resented that which was rightfully not hers. Gerald, with his polished demeanor, had too much knowledge of the estate's affairs and an insatiable hunger for power, its meticulous intricacies leading to whispers of cover-ups and hidden desires. Poirot placed each character under scrutiny, observing the telling glances and whispered exchanges. "Might I inquire, Lady Agatha, of your whereabouts at the very moment the heirloom disappeared?" he asked, his tone layered with an elegance that disarmed yet pierced. Her composure cracked, just a fraction, betraying a flicker of irritation. "I was tending to my personal affairs in the gardens. Surely you can't blame me for seeking solace amidst the chaos." "Solace?" Poirot mused, noting the fine jewelry she wore, a rich and elegant necklace that contrasted starkly against the threescore modesty of mourning attire. The emerald's absence was a void, one that tugged at the heartstrings of ambition. And yet the question remains, was it truly absence or calculated convenience? Poirot shifted his observations to Gerald. "You seem unflustered, Mr. Avery, at such a critical juncture. Tell us, is it not troubling to you?" The attorney's practiced calm was wavering as he adjusted his collar, a slight expression of disdain clouding his otherwise genial demeanor. "I assure you, Poirot, this situation is most unfortunate, but I am merely a custodian of the estate, not its keeper." Yet something lay beneath his soothing words, a hint of anxiety that belied his calm exterior. The impending storm rumbled ominously outside, resonating with the unvoiced tensions within the manor. Poirot's thoughts surged forth, the clashing motivations, a tangled density laced with desperation and betrayal of the heart. As he unraveled the clues, he stumbled upon a red herring, a cleverly placed diversion in the shape of a compromised servant alibi. Evelyn, attached to Lady Beatrice's legacy, was discovered lurking in one of the corridors hours before the heirloom's disappearance. However, as Poirot dug deeper, a sudden insight seized him, striking with the precision of a thunderbolt illuminating the darkness. Evelyn, it turned out, was merely a pawn in a game much larger, for one could not steal what was never truly theirs. His focus shifted back to the three within the drawing room. As he gathered them once more, Poirot's air was thick with certainty. It is not merely want that drives us, my friends, but the burdens we carry, shames hidden beneath layers of propriety. Lady Beatrice was not just a victim of circumstances. She harbored secrets that would erode your fragile alliances. Gerald's facade crumbled, and in a moment of fury, he confessed, "What you unravel is true. I loved her, but she turned from me into the arms of another, a blissful betrayal." Reginald's eyes widened, transforming from disbelief to despair, as the meaning behind those words sank in deeper than the ocean's depths, while Lady Agatha's demeanor shifted to icy resolution, the glint of jealousy dancing behind her mask. And thus, Poirot announced with poised clarity, the loss of the emerald was but a reflection of the trust buried beneath it. For it was not merely the object that held value, but what it stood for, a symbol of return and rejection, with each heart clouded in bitterness. With a swift flourish, he presented the emerald, having liberated it from a hidden compartment within a prized equestrian statuette, the guilty remnant of an unrepentant soul. Each of you desired the emerald not for the wealth, but the recognition it bestowed, while within you, resentment brewed until it manifested in theft and deception. Imagine, mes amis, the irony denoting such desire, to seek belonging through theft rather than dignity. How tragic, indeed. The room grew silent, heavy with the weight of revelation. Poirot's keen gaze lingered upon each, the depth of betrayal palpable within their eyes. Love, it seems, is not the ruler of truth, but its revelator. As they absorbed the layers of deceit intertwined with mere desire, Poirot left them to their shadows, stepping into the storm, a witness to the unraveling legacies of the heart, its chaos echoing amidst darkness, like whispers lost in the wind. Chapter 4. Secrets of the Past. The thunderous clap of lightning echoed through the Carrington Manor, illuminating the gaunt, frowning faces of its inhabitants, drawing long shadows that flitted unnervingly across the walls. A scream ruptured the air, the sound, shattered and raw, left behind an almost physical silence, an unbearable tension, hanging like the oppressive humidity before a storm. It was a cry that spoke of desperation, locking away secrets that had lingered in the dark corners of the Dieu family's history, waiting to burst forth like a thunderstorm unleashed. In the drawing room, Poirot stood, his keen mind rapidly cataloguing the panic unfolding around him. Reginald, still recovering from the recent revelation of the emerald's theft, now appeared a spectre, adrift in a sea of chaos. His ashen face betrayed a tumult of emotions, unable to mask the flickering shadows of guilt lurking behind his amber eyes. Lady Agatha, her demeanor turned icy under scrutiny, clutched her shawl tightly, the tension in her clenched hands contrasting with her carefully composed exterior. And Gerald, seemingly unfazed, appeared engrossed in the drama as if watching a play unfold. Poirot raised an eyebrow, discerning a hint of something more hidden behind the facade of indifference. "Tell me," he said, his voice steady like the quiet before a storm, "what has caused this haunting lament?" Their silence weighed heavily, yet he could sense the churning emotions beneath their calm. Each of them clung to their own secrets like drowning men grasping at driftwood. Poirot stepped closer, his sharp eyes narrowing as they flickered between them. He could almost hear the thoughts spinning in their minds, what they would reveal and what they would prefer to bury beneath layers of pretense. As the storm raged outside, bonding their fates, Poirot sensed the past enveloping the present, threads of history weaving themselves anew into the fabric of this gathering. Striding towards a velvet-cushioned armchair, he tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Within you, do you still carry the echoes of bygone days?" Recurrences of the past had a way of surfacing in the most unexpected fashions, and it was within this charged atmosphere that Poirot began to investigate the roots of the chaos enveloping them. He guided them to recount the moments leading up to Lady Beatrice's tragic demise and the events surrounding the recent theft. Clues lingered like unwanted spectres and shadows, which clung uninvited to their desperate souls. Reginald spoke first, stammering. She spoke of a future, a shared future, with someone not us. I feared losing out on her affection, but I never imagined it would lead to this. His breath hitched momentarily, feeling the weight of the tension. The emerald was to restore the Carrington pride, not just to me, but to the entire family. It meant the world to her. And now, it is gone. Lady Agatha interjected, her voice trembling slightly. "You speak of pride, Reginald, but tell us, were you truly worthy of it? You and your dreams? Who is the one really deserving of Lady Beatrice's legacy? Perhaps it is I, for I was always her most favoured niece." Her anger resonated through the air, revealing the jealousy she had long infused with civility. As tensions grew, Poirot turned his gaze to Gerald. "And you, Mr. Avery, the ever-faithful attorney, your calm demeanour belies an agitation. What do you truly know?" The lawyer hesitated, the words hanging on the precipice of revelation. "It was the family's burden to bear, not mine alone. I served Lady Beatrice until the end, and her decisions were complicated," he finally managed, keeping his expression carefully guarded. "The past," Poirot mused, "it intertwines with our present in ways we do not always anticipate. Secrets do not vanish. They fester in the corners, waiting for the opportune moment to strike." He felt the pulse of their stories, weaving tales of betrayal and desire intricately concealed behind deflections and polite lies. As each character revealed their pasts, Poirot passed through their tales, identifying threads of manipulation, concealed loyalties, and undeterred ambition. Yet beneath their elaborate fabrications lay a singular truth, tightly bound. Lady Beatrice had indeed navigated a web of treachery framed by adoration. The heirloom had stirred ambitions in them all, igniting the desire to grasp at the very roots of what it meant to belong. Suddenly, whispered secrets surfaced like bubbles from deep waters. Lady Agatha's furtive liaisons with men from beyond their social sphere, and Reginald's illicit dealings behind his family's back to secure favour among society. Poirot's eyebrow arched. He sensed a red herring laid purposely at his feet, meant to mislead his keen observations. Then, in a dark twist of fate, as Poirot pieced it all together, he stumbled onto an even deeper deception linked to Gerald's stern opulence. Just moments before he unveiled his findings, Gerald drew closer, a glint of desperation in his eyes. "It's true, Poirot. I had an affair with Lady Beatrice long before her death, but it was not out of love. No, it was fear, the depths of which you cannot comprehend." "What did you fear, Gerald?" Poirot pressed sharply, his voice thick with tension. A pained smile flickered across Gerald's face as he uttered, "The truth. She had uncovered something about me, about my past, something I thought long buried. It could ruin me entirely if exposed." In that moment, the storm outside mirrored the tempest within, crashing upon both the walls of the manor and the hearts of its inhabitants. Poirot, with the careful precision of a conductor leading a symphony, stood at the precipice of revelation, sensing that the key to his puzzle lay hidden within the threads they inevitably overlooked. "Ah, but this is the beauty of secrets," Poirot finally declared, his voice steady, shattering the silence. "They intertwine with the human experience, yet when one attempts to erase the past, silence often becomes the mightiest of adversaries." And with that proclamation, he unveiled the lingering truth. The emerald had not only been sought after for wealth or pride, but was a symbol of their entangled fates. It was never about the object, but the power it represented, a power distorted by a longing to reclaim what was lost, a love stained by regret. Caught in an emotional whirlpool, the characters listened, their faces betraying the embedded tremors of their inner turmoil. With clarity, Poirot illuminated their paths, revealing that sometimes the desire for recognition comes entwined with darker intentions, culminating in a tragic end to the secrets they so desperately sought to conceal. As the winds howled and the rain beat against the manor like a pulse of life intent on exposing truths, Poirot turned one last piercing gaze upon them, delivering a final line that would resonate long after the storm subsided. "And in the quest for power, we forget the most poignant truth of all. Trust, once betrayed, weaves a darkness that shadows even the brightest of legacies." Chapter 5. A Fatal Encounter. A piercing scream shattered the stillness of the Carrington Manor, reverberating through the hallowed halls like a phantom seeking vengeance. The storm outside lashed against the windows, flickering candlelight casting ominous shadows that danced upon the walls, as if the house itself were alive, reproaching its inhabitants with their sins. In the heart of the chaos, Poirot stood, already grappling with the gravity of an unforeseen tragedy that had turned the night into an abyss of terror. He was drawn into the drawing room, where Gerald lay sprawled upon the floor, the glint of a knife embedded deep within his chest, his expression frozen in a tableau of shock and betrayal. The once vibrant emerald lay nearby, its beauty stark against the horror, pulsing as if to mock the lifeblood that had spilled upon the polished wood. Poirot's keen eyes assessed the scene, absorbing the details, the flickering shadows, the acrid scent of fear, and the palpable tension that hung in the air. Reginald and Lady Agatha stood transfixed, terror etched on their faces as they watched the grave tableau unfold. "It cannot be!" Reginald exclaimed, shaking with emotion, eyes darting from the body to Poirot, who remained resolute and unyielding. Lady Agatha clutched her shawl around her shoulders, lips pressed tightly, as if stifling secrets still veiled beneath layers of propriety. "Indeed, it can be," Poirot replied, his voice steady, threading through the chaos like a beam of light in the fog. This is no accident. It is the consequence of a heart laden with desire and deception. The storm outside raged, thunder crashing like the very heartbeat of the world, while the clawing winds whispered secrets that entwined the living with the ghostly shadows of the past. Reginald's voice trembled slightly. But who could bring themselves to do such a thing? We were all here, a mere moment before the scream. His gaze flickered to Agatha, searching for assurance in the female figure beside him. "You were here too, Lady Agatha. What did you see?" Agatha's eyes, usually calm and composed, now flickered with an unfounded anger that was more revealing than any admission of innocence. "I saw nothing. If you wish for an answer, perhaps you should look at yourself. You coveted that wretched emerald more than Gerald ever did. It would have assured you a legacy, a chance to claim what was once yours. Ah, but the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused, in silence, pondering the venom lurking beneath their facades. As the charged atmosphere thickened around them, he began his inquiry. "Come, you two, let us not lose sight of the subtle truths hidden within this chaos. We must explore the very essence of motives that lead to this act of violence." With an air of authority, Poirot turned his incisive gaze upon Reginald. "You, Reginald, harbour an affliction for Lady Beatrice's fate, yet I sense shadows cloaked within your desires. Speak upon your relationship with Gerald. What was it that lay between you, my friend?" Reginald hesitated, his facade of bravado crumbling. "Gerald was more than just a friend. He was family to us, an ally in the eyes of the world. But jealousy shadowed our bond. We vied for Lady Beatrice's affection, and that dreadful emerald was to be the symbol of our worth." He swallowed, eyes betraying the storm of emotions swirling within him. Poirot noted the raw intensity with which Reginald spoke, yet enough uncertainty remained to plant doubt. Shifting his focus, he turned towards Agatha next. "And you, my dear Lady Agatha, seem to hold a fervent desire to protect the legacy of your late aunt. Did you not, as you implied earlier, have ambitions to surpass the traditional expectations placed upon women of your status?" Agatha's eyes hardened, the shock of the murder bleeding into her resolve. "Lady Beatrice promised me she would elevate my standing, but she was fickle, and I was always a mere shadow. Perhaps I grew weary of fading into obscurity. No one will ever recognize my ambition unless I claim it." As Poirot immersed himself into their tangled narratives, he sensed a growing web of deceit, weaving thicker by the hour. Moments later, as he prepared to scrutinize the incriminating pieces of circumstantial evidence, a realization struck him. The two locked into an unwelcome alliance, working together against unseen forces lurking beyond the realm of their truths. Yet just as he narrowed it down, new revelations came forth, a red herring laid out like a feast. During their conversation, Agatha revealed glimpses of a secret affair between Gerald and Lady Beatrice, a clandestine romance that once filled her with despair and shame. "She betrayed me, Poirot." Agatha's voice trembled with a tension that seemed to grip the very air. "I would have saved her from him had I known." The storm outside swelled, as if echoing the tumult within the drawing room. Poirot observed each character closely, noting their body language shift and falter, unearthing the fear and resentment they hid so well. He caught sight of a crumpled piece of paper, half hidden beneath the chaise longue, an old letter penned in Beatrice's elegant handwriting, filled with declarations of love to Gerald, dated mere weeks prior to her demise. Reginald gasped as Poirot held the note aloft, the glistening raindrops streaming down the window, mirroring the uncertainty that lingered in the air. You see, here lies the crux of their betrayal, but it seems I have underestimated the tumult of the human spirit. In that split second, a thought flickered in Poirot's mind, igniting a cascade of realization. I have misconstrued the very nature of these entanglements, he murmured to himself. With a decisive flick of his wrist, he unveiled the truth. Gerald's murder was indeed a tragedy born out of unrequited love and jealousy, but one other player remained in shadow, wielding a power of manipulation that transcended even bloody ambition. Ah, but Reginald, it was you who thrust the dagger into Gerald's heart, was it not? Poirot declared, his voice resonating with certainty. Under the guise of desperation, your hand may have faltered, yet it was your heart that sought revenge for betrayal. You did not merely wish for Lady Beatrice's love, you bound yourself to a fate driven by jealousy. Reginald's features contorted, despair crashing over him like the storm outside. You cannot. It was not my intent. Oh, but intent, my dear boy, is but a heartbeat away from execution. The heart fears most what it covets. The gravity of his own words weighed heavily on Reginald, as Poirot continued to connect every thread of deceit. In my search for truth, I believed love clouded your vision, but in your case, it was betrayal that ignited your lust for revenge. In a moment of anguish, Reginald lost his tenuous grasp on reality, a tempest of rage and grief coiling around him until he fell to his knees, a man equally enslaved by need and rejection. The shadows within the room deepened, the candlelight flickering, as if holding its breath, waiting for the storm within to resolve. Poirot cast a final gaze upon him, the weight of revelations pressing heavily, knowing the heart's misfortunes would haunt this family long after he departed. And thus, Poirot stated, his tone steady and resolute, in the chase for belonging, both Gerald and you were but tragic figures caught in the web of another's narrative. As darkness simmered on the fringes of the Carrington Manor, Poirot left them to face their demons, the truth echoing through the house like an unfinished melody, each note resonating with the pain of broken dreams, shattered loyalties, and the eternal struggle between love and betrayal. Chapter 6. The Alibi Game. A muted scream echoed through the dread-filled corridors of Carrington Manor, only to be absorbed by the oppressive silence that followed. The storm outside raged on, unabated, while inside, tensions simmered like the pot of secrets that simmered just below the surface. Flickering candlelight cast erratic shadows across the drawing room where three figures stood, each cloaked in unease, their eyes darting like trapped birds seeking an escape. In the eye of this tempest stood Hercule Poirot, the detective whose keen mind could unravel this tangled web. Yet even he could sense that the forthcoming revelations would shake the very foundation of the trust he had painstakingly built. Ah, mon ami, how delicate the human heart can be, Poirot murmured as he surveyed Reginald, Lady Agatha, and the unexpected new player, Henry, the equally ambitious heir to the Carrington legacy. Reginald's facade of indignation belied an undercurrent of fear. Lady Agatha's icy demeanor concealed a simmering resentment, while Henry fidgeted nervously, his hands betraying his anxiety as they clenched and unclenched. Each had an alibi to defend, yet Poirot could see that something more insidious lingered beneath their composed exteriors. Allow me to understand your whereabouts during the moment of chaos, Poirot commanded, his voice steady yet gentle, imbuing the atmosphere with a palpable tension. Reginald was first to confess, his voice tinged with a tremor. I was in the library, contemplating the losses that have befallen us. I was with Lady Agatha, discussing the estate. The young man's eyes flickered to Agatha, as if seeking salvation in her gaze. She, however, was already lost in thought, calculating her next move. Indeed, we were reading a passage from a book, she asserted, gathering her poise as a vulture might shelter its nest. A history of the Carrington line. It held our interest. Poirot noted their words, but what concerned him more was Henry's fidgeting. When the detective turned to him, the young man swallowed hard, his brow glistening with perspiration. I was in the garden, he stammered, avoiding direct eye contact. I thought I heard something and, well, the rain had lessened, and the moonlight inspired me to wander. The silence that followed felt heavy around them, each second stretching into infinity as Poirot meticulously passed their confessions, revealing the cracks that marred their alibis. "Ah, but observe this, mes amis," Poirot began, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "You, dear Henry, at such an eerie hour chose to venture into the garden, a lover of beauty, yet you are aware that secrets often thrive in darkness." As the rain lashed against the windows, a crack of thunder illuminated the arena of their souls, laid bare. "You are not untouched by ambition, are you?" Poirot's gaze honed in on him, the shrouded motives growing darker. "What has driven you here among whispers of betrayal?" Henry hesitated, shifting uncomfortably before abruptly confessing. Gerald spoke of elevating the estate, seeking new ventures. He didn't see the value in retaining old legacies. His voice teetered on the edge of respect and contempt. It was said that my inheritance would dwindle under him. The implication hung in the charged air, igniting suspicion anew. Poirot considered his emotional gambit, the raw ambition glistening like a knife edge. As Poirot probed deeper into Henry's psyche, Agatha interjected, her sharp voice slicing through the tension. "You accuse him, Poirot, yet yours is not a heart untouched." Her cool gaze pierced through the shadows, unsettling Poirot's meticulous analysis. "You sought your aunt's approval, a chance to transcend the societal chains that bind women of our time. Had not Gerald betrayed your trust?" The unspoken animosity crackled between them, a testament to the fierce rivalry that enveloped their shared past. "True, mon ami," Poirot mused softly, "but let us not forget where buried affections reside." He turned his attention back to Reginald. "Your claim to Lady Beatrice's love, how fervently did you pursue her affections?" Reginald's expression darkened, the truth lying just beneath his rugged surface, whispering of ambition and desperation. "She was my beacon, Poirot, a chance to elevate our status." His voice faltered with painful conviction, revealing not only his feelings, but his bitter desperation in the face of loss. As the hour grew late, Poirot laid out the fragments of their confessions before them, each personal debt and heartache bifurcating like tributaries of a chaotic river. He scrutinized the shifts in their gazes, the subtle shifts of position. Suddenly, an unnoticed detail emerged, a clock on the mantel, ticking with ominous certainty. "Reginald, you mentioned your presence in the library, yet your alibi fails to account for the sound of the scream." Poirot paused, staring down at the obscured edges of the revelations. "If one counts the time, tell me precisely, what was your relationship with Gerald in those last moments? Could your hands bear the stain of his blood? The air thickened, Reginald stammering, "I wanted to confront him about Lady Beatrice." His voice cracked under the weight of expectations, an avalanche of regret flowing forth. "But I never intended any harm." Gasps and whispers painted the room with anxious hues, the tension electrifying as Poirot realized that their alibis were less composed tales and more fragile lies wrapped in emotion. Then, just as Poirot began to weave clarity from chaos, a revelation flickered within him, a red herring creeping into his consciousness. Lady Agatha's slip about her relationship with Gerald. Her unfaltering affection masked a resentment that towed the line between admiration and desire, painting a far broader canvas than he had initially anticipated. The scales of deceit began to tilt unsettlingly in Agatha's direction. However, Poirot understood that their intricate dance concealed one final truth. It is oft said that betrayal lingers beneath a mask of affection, and in the struggle for the heart, we bury our moral compasses, he proclaimed, watching as their faces shifted like shadows. Agatha, there is one truth deeper than the betrayal of unrequited love. One who desires power beyond their reach may engineer a tragedy. Gasps erupted as Poirot unveiled the dagger of betrayal. It had never truly been about Gerald's fate, but rather Agatha's, which she would go to any lengths to preserve. Just as he prepared to confront her with the certainty of his deductions, a cold realization enveloped him. Reginald's fleeting glance of alliance toward Henry was no mere coincidence. In their struggles, each had sought power. Yet it was Agatha who had orchestrated the jealousy, too clever to hide her accumulating hopes for legacy through the guise of propriety. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot proclaimed, "the heart in pursuit of recognition oft plays the cruelest of games. Each of you believed you held the hand of fate. None recognized that it was Agatha moving the pieces." At that moment, it became painfully clear that betrayal lay heavy among their hearts, stitched together by secrets they buried below the surface. They were participants in a game too cruel to comprehend, and only one emerged deemed fit to claim the mantle of the Carrington legacy. As shadows receded and the dawn pushed forth timidly through the storm, Poirot cast a final glance upon the chamber, now draped in the vestiges of deceit. Remember, my dear friends, in the game of alibis, the heart's intentions can be far more treacherous than the knife that delivers pain. Chapter 7. Lies and Deception. A chill had crept into Carrington Manor, more penetrating than the relentless storm that battered its stone facade. The wind howled with a haunting melody, a prelude to the terror that lurked within its darkened corridors. A muffled scream pierced the air, reverberating like an echo of doom, yet it seemed to dissolve into the midnight silence almost instantly, leaving behind only the oppressive weight of fear. Hercule Poirot, haunted by the shadows of secrets and lies, found himself at the heart of this turmoil, the very souls of the manor now entwined in a dance of deceit. The gathering storm had transformed the once stately home into a crucible of mistrust. Shadows flickered across the drawing room, cast by the wavering light of lone candles struggling against the encroaching darkness. Poirot stood amidst three anxious figures, their faces inscrutable masks, hiding truths buried deep. Each was a potential suspect, bound by intricate tales of their own. Making there was Reginald, a man burdened by ambition and the spectre of his loved one's expectations. Lady Agatha, whose cold elegance veiled a tumultuous heart, longing for recognition. And Henry, the ambitious heir with secrets that gnawed at him like a relentless tide. Reginald, the flames of emotion consume you, Poirot remarked, his voice steady yet rich with undertones. Have you not been toying with the embers of betrayal? Tell me what you perceived when the scream ruptured the night's stillness. Reginald hesitated, his facade of composure wavering as he recalled the chaos. I felt dread, a weight I couldn't shake. I thought it was Lady Beatrice, perhaps caught in a forbidden moment. I was pacing in the corridor when I heard, and his words trailed off, an unspoken admission hanging between them, thorn-laden with guilt and desire. Ah, but the heart is a treacherous navigator, Poirot interjected, eyes narrowing as he latched onto the tremor in Reginald's voice. His gaze shifted to Lady Agatha, whose frosty demeanor belied a burning fury underneath. And you, dear Agatha, what of your own reflections? Were they not clouded by dreams of ascendance? In your heart, have you not yearned for a legacy born of trust rather than betrayal? Agatha's lips tightened, her face a mask of righteous indignation. My aspirations should not be sullied with unwarranted accusations, Poirot. I seek only to preserve the legacy of our house. As for Reginald, one must question whether his affections are rooted in love or ambition. Could you not perceive jealousy, Poirot, when all we seek is to survive? Poirot considered her words. A fair observation, mon ami, yet jealousy only fuels the fire. And what of you, Henry? Poirot turned to the young man, who appeared enveloped in a cloak of fidgeting nerves. Why did you roam the garden in the bleakness of night? Surely the moonlight could not guide your unsteady path. Henry swallowed, the perspiration beading upon his brow. I heard. I sensed something was amiss. Gerald was plotting against all in his path, you see. I was afraid our future would disintegrate under his rule. Perhaps I sought clarity, or simply a reason to confront fate. As the tension thickened, Poirot gathered the threads of their confessions, threading them through the loom of deceit. Yet, dear friends, I believe you navigate a tangle of metaphors, rather than simple truths. For what if your loyalties are misplaced, and your grievances but illusions? The candlelight flickered ominously, casting grotesque shadows as he peered into the souls of those before him. As fragments of lies began surfacing, Poirot noticed an inconsistency. The clock on the mantel ticked with relentless precision, each beat echoing the mounting chaos. Reginald, you have spoken of Lady Beatrice with fervor, yet I sense an oscillation within your heart regarding her connection to Gerald. Are we to believe you merely long for her affection? Reginald's face paled, his eyes darting as emotion clashed with logic. It is not that simple, Poirot. Beatrice was the symbol of our shared dreams, yet Gerald cast a shadow so dark over our future. The more he confessed, the deeper Poirot's realization ran. The connections were more intricate and venomous than he first perceived. Henry, spurred by despair, suddenly proclaimed, Gerald always sought to demean us, belittle our aspirations, but we are not mere pawns in his game. We have rights too. His voice crackled with tension, each syllable laden with accusation. You bear grudges, yet do not mistake animosity for innocence. The chaos surrounding Gerald's demise and the accusations, it is only masked treachery that plagues our legacy. Poirot regarded Henry's outburst, calculating the web now spun tighter around him. In the swirling tempest of emotions, Poirot found uncertainty creeping in, a rare occurrence. It was as if he traversed a maze of mirrors, each reflection echoing a truth that was half-formed. But observe, mes amis, deception wears many faces, he uttered enveloping them in his presence, while tension lay heavy in unmoving air. Suddenly, he sensed the delicate hand of fate stirring deeper waters. Yet another layer peeled away, as Lady Agatha, desperate to shift the blame, cried out, "I am but a woman fighting for my rightful place. Gerald sought to erase our signature from history at every turn. Must I bear the burden of your guilt?" The room erupted into chaos as accusations flared, each voice bleeding resentment. However, beneath the surface, Poirot felt the undertow of Agatha wrestling with vulnerability, the longing for power cloaked in a desire for acceptance. Amidst this turmoil, Poirot honed in on a crucial detail overlooked by the others. Henry's hands, quivering with adrenaline, concealed a deeper fear emerging from the recesses of his character. "Ah, but do you not see?" Poirot exclaimed, threading his fingers together. "What we are witnessing is an elaborate performance, and I suspect there lies a hidden ambition even more dire. The heart harbors greater treachery than mere hatred. It binds together bonds so sacred that betrayal becomes inevitable." In a dramatic shift, Poirot revealed his deduction. "Reginald, your connection to both Lady Beatrice and Gerald casts your shadow across this stage. But it is you, Agatha, who meticulously wove this narrative of deceit, leveraging the yearning of those around you as pawns in your game, for legacy must be forged in the fires of betrayal." Gasps reverberated around the room, dynamic emotions erupting. Reginald recoiled in rage, while Henry whispered a solemn realization. Understanding dawned, heavy with implication. Poirot's keen intellect had unraveled not merely a murder, but a saga of hidden envy entwined with fractured love and ambition. In the grand tapestry of emotional conflict, it is often love turned sour that births the most insidious lies and shocking deeds. As the air thickened with tension, each figure stood unmasked, harsh truths laid bare in the flickering candlelight. "Remember, dear friends," Poirot concluded, his eyes piercing with existential gravitas, "while we may hope to construct empires of love, it is the seeds of betrayal that cultivate the most poignant tragedies this world holds." And with that final proclamation reverberating through the hallways of Carrington Manor, he stepped back, now merely an observer of the heart's deepest labyrinth, the cavern of lies echoing longs after he departed. Chapter 8. The Labyrinth of Confessions. Night fell heavily around Carrington Manor, as if the very fabric of darkness had conspired to shroud its secrets. Rain lashed against the stone facade, relentless and clamorous, as though attempting to wash away the sins buried within. In the drawing room, where candles flickered nervously against the blackness, Hercule Poirot stood, resolute and unyielding, a beacon of discernment amidst the chaos enveloping the troubled household. The atmosphere crackled with tension, each breath drawn, woven with dread. A single, anguished gasp shattered the stillness like glass. Lady Beatrice lay sprawled on the floor, her life extinguished, a chilling tableau carved by fate's deceitful hand. As Poirot's piercing gaze swept the hastily gathered witnesses, the storm outside intensified, echoing the tumult within. 3 figures loomed large in the doorway. Reginald, his countenance pale and hollow. Lady Agatha, her elegant composure flickering like the flame-dipped wicks, and Henry, visibly trembling, as if the very essence of fear coursed through his veins. Each face bore shadows of guilt, weaving a tapestry of suspicion that entranced Poirot's analytical mind. "Ah, mes amis," he murmured with gravitas, "the labyrinth we traverse tonight is wrought with confessions, veils of deceit lurking behind each corner. But tell me, what is the truth of this tragedy? Reginald, quick to regain his footing, stepped forward, quavering yet resolute. I arrived to find her lying there, he stammered, eyes wide with a contrast of shock and something deeper, perhaps a flicker of relief. Gerald had threatened her. She was terrified. Only hours before this horror, she spoke of his tyranny, pleading for an end to his reign. Poirot raised a discerning brow, intrigued by the raw emotion in Reginald's voice, but wary of his overzealous defense. Was it true, or merely a mirage devised to distract? Lady Agatha's demeanor shimmered with indignation. Reginald, how dare you insinuate such weakness? Beatrice was strong. It was our duty to shield her from Gerald's machinations. Yet, it seems you revel in this chaos, she accused, fingers trembling slightly as they traced an invisible pattern across her gown. What truths do you hide in that heart of yours? Henry's voice trembled as he stepped hesitantly into the growing tempest. You do not understand. Gerald was plotting. He would stop at nothing to crush any opposition, he blurted out, desperation creeping into his tone. I overheard discussions of betrayal. I tried to save her. I wanted to warn Beatrice. Yet, Poirot detected an undertone of trepidation in Henry's words. Could he truly be as innocent as he claimed? As the storm howled outside, illuminating fleeting shadows within, Poirot took stock of the room. His mind raced, strolling through the paths of possibility. What an exquisite tableau we create here, my dear friends, he said, his voice calm yet imbued with deadly seriousness. With our hearts as pawns, we become both actors and victims in this tragic play. In the ensuing silence, Poirot began his inquiry, armed with a seemingly casual tone, yet keen perception. Reginald, you spoke of plots and defenses, yet the emotion you mistakenly wield may reflect greed more than loyalty, n'est-ce pas? What if your desperation for Beatrice's affections was the true catalyst? Reginald's eyes flared with indignation, faced with the unwelcome spectre of his desires, laid bare, a truth he had never intended to share. Lady Agatha, Poirot continued, turning his piercing gaze to her, your elegant distaste for the proceedings begs questions of its own. Did your ambition for creative recognition blind you to the reality that Beatrice yet held the key to your legacy? The rawness of her pride cut like a knife. Emotions swelled behind her poised facade. Do not infer my aspirations are linked to malice, Poirot, she fired back, her voice a crescendo of icy defiance, thinly veiled beneath a guise of vulnerability. Henry, cornered and desperate, intervened. What matters is that Gerald wielded power like a dagger. We were all victims in his game. Should we not question the very fabric of this legacy? Beatrice was entangled in a web of betrayal. We each have our scars, he exclaimed, broken, yet an undercurrent of guilt pulsed beneath his protestations. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Poirot leaned back, savoring the taste of tension flavoring the air. My friends, I must remind you that secrets live in the shadows, an unforgiving labyrinth where the unwary may easily wander into traps of their own making. He began piecing together the fragments, the conflicting emotions left in the wake of Beatrice's demise. With deliberation, he alighted on a detail that smoldered with implication. Reginald, I sense a weighty history beneath your relationship with Lady Beatrice. Could it be regret lingers there? Your bond needed, a reckoning perhaps, thus leading to your actions tonight. Just as the tension thickened like fog around them, Poirot landed upon an epiphany, a sudden realization that spiraled the narrative deeper into complexity. Yet within this brooding chaos, I find something far more insidious. Each of you holds a piece of Beatrice's truth. Reginald, your affection intertwines with suspicion. Agatha, your ambitions haze your judgment. And Henry, your despair conceals a deeper anguish. But there, like a candle threatening to extinguish, a flicker caught Poirot's eye. A delicate letter crumpled upon the mantelpiece, overlooked in the tumult. "Ah!" he exclaimed, drawing everyone's gaze, a piece of correspondence, perhaps hidden amidst the tumult of emotion. "What does this reveal?" As he unfolded the letter, the silence thickened into a palpable dread. Words implicating Beatrice in a scheme to usurp Gerald's power blurred the lines of innocence, giving weight to Henry's claims. But it also revealed a startling truth. The letter bore Beatrice's secret intent to flee, free from the legacy that bound her. She was betrayed not merely by Gerald, but by those who loved her as well. But who was truly behind the veil of betrayal? Poirot pondered, a shadow passing over the candlelight as he placed the pieces together. What if the true betrayal was not mere ambition or jealousy, but rather misunderstanding, a tragic interplay of hearts entwined in their own twisted designs? The time Paris had once offered for healing lay shattered by their truths. Each suspect peeled back layers, their confessions becoming indistinguishable from their lies. Poirot's voice grew steady, pressing them toward the inevitable conclusion. "Reginald, your desires prompted an action that spiraled out of control upon meeting Beatrice. Agatha, how bitterly ironic for you to bear witness while your aspirations tore the fabric of loyalty." With a final flourish, Poirot revealed his deduction with a resonance that echoed throughout the room. "The labyrinth we traverse is woven with shattered dreams, false loyalties, and hidden truths. Each of you paid a price, a dear sacrifice. In the end, it is the very ambition you sought that led to her death, a poetic justice stamped within the heart of Carrington Manor." As silence enveloped them, the storm outside faded into an eerie calm, and Poirot's words became a weight that settled over each heart. "Remember, my dear friends, love can oft cloak the most profound betrayals. Therein lies the tragedy of the human experience." The shadows flickered, whispering secrets as satisfaction coursed through the chamber, ever so slowly cooling the ardor of their unraveling lives. Chapter 9. Shadows of Doubt. The wind howled against the cold stones of Carrington Manor, an eerie lament echoing through the air, punctuated by the relentless drumming of rain against the windows. Inside, a heavy silence cocooned the drawing room, where the flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows that danced upon the walls, creating a disquieting atmosphere thick with tension. Suddenly, they were broken by a shrill scream that pierced the stillness, a scream that was all too familiar in the wake of recent tragedy. Lady Agatha, standing by the mantel, clutched her evening gown, eyes wide with terror as she staggered backward, nearly losing her balance. "It cannot be true," she gasped, voice trembling. Layer upon layer of emotion bled into her words as she recoiled from the lifeless form sprawled on the floor. Henry, his figure contorted in an unnatural manner, a crimson pool spreading beneath him, soaking the marbled tiles, marking another chapter in the Manor's macabre saga. Hercule Poirot, the esteemed detective, stood immovable at the threshold, his gravelly brows furrowed with a storm of thoughts, analyzing every minute detail, every shift in every heart present. "Ah, mes amis," he murmured with an air of grave authority. "It appears the winds of fate howl a dissonant choir tonight. Yet, this is not merely a death, but the poignant echo of life's own discord, an act wrought from the shadows of doubt." He stepped forward, carefully navigating the chaos around him. His keen eyes absorbed all details: the distressed movements of Agatha, the pale countenance of Reginald lurking in the corner, and the distraught pleas of those present, each concealing their own treachery. Reginald, pulled sharply from his reverie, was the first to regain composure, though it was evident his facade was crumbling. "I arrived just moments before the scream," he stammered, his hands twitching slightly. I found him like this. Henry, he was always too reckless." His voice cracked with emotion, a guilty urgency resonating through the air. Poirot's mind whirred at the uncertainty in Reginald's tone, a thin veneer of concern that felt diaphanous at best. Lady Agatha, still recovering from the initial shock, interjected fiercely, "Enough! Do you think we do not see your ruse, Reginald? The elaborate web you attempt to weave? You envied him, did you not? He stood between you and Beatrice's affections." Her sharp, accusing words hung heavily, almost suffocating in their accusation. Reginald's expression morphed into one of fury, yet Poirot detected something deeper, the essence of fear, masked beneath layers of emotional upheaval. "Each of you carries shadows," Poirot asserted, his voice firm, slicing through the tempest of emotions swirling in the room. "Shadows that twist and entangle in a manner most insidious. But tell me, who truly benefits from this dark affair?" His gaze swept across the room, meticulously observing the subtle exchanges, the flickering dissatisfaction in Agatha's eyes, the sheen of sweat betraying Reginald's composure, and the trembling hands of Gerald, who had unexpectedly entered the fray, now an unwitting spectator of the chaos. Gerald stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "I demand honesty. I have no love lost for Henry, but to think anyone would dare kill him within these walls, sacrilege. And yet, dare I say, perhaps it was you, Agatha," he barked, the venom in his words curling like smoke into the atmosphere. "You have resented Henry for too long. Is it not plausible you sought to extinguish the frustration born of unrequited love?" "Stop," Poirot interjected gently, the tone a stark contrast to the fervor in the room. "To point fingers without evidence serves only to obscure the truth further. Let us consider the clues as they unfurl before us, like the petals of a wilting flower. Reginald, your sentiments were entwined with envy, which breeds contempt. Agatha, your ambition was similarly maligned, and, Gerald, your arrogance may serve as an unfortunate catalyst, a concocting of ill-fated schemes amongst a tangled web of desires." As Poirot delved deeper into the labyrinthine emotions surrounding the murder, he pondered each narrative thread, his thoughts weaving intricate pathways luminous with possibilities. Agatha was ambitious, yet fraught with vulnerability, Reginald entangled in longing, while Gerald's layer of authority concealed a desperate need for control. Their selves masked beneath layers of defensive measures, a heart that demanded to prevail but had only recognized solace in envy and spite. But in every shadow, a glimmer of misdirection flickered. Poirot recalled a vital detail barely acknowledged amid their tumultuous exchanges: the misplaced letter bearing Beatrice's hand, a seemingly trivial item overshadowed by their visceral reactions. "Reginald," Poirot asked, "where was Henry before he met such a tragic end? And did you witness him receiving this letter from Lady Beatrice? A ripple of revelation stirred. No one had questioned Henry's movements. It was an overlooked detail, now casting a larger shadow. Reginald hesitated, eyes narrowing. I saw him earlier in the library poring over parchments. The letter, I knew nothing of its content. Yet crushing uncertainty echoed in his voice, a pointed admission that did not go unrecognized. Then came the moment that ensnared the mind. A young maid's timid entrance, a revelation wrapped in timidity. "Excuse me, sir," she stammered, eyes cast downward. "I heard them arguing just before it happened. Mr. Henry, he spoke of ending the legacy that had entrapped him." A grim silence befell the room, the shadows of doubt bending painfully as her words reverberated into the tension-laden air. Ah, the legacy, the very words that hovered like a dark mist above your heads. Poirot pirouetted around the room, deftly weaving thoughts into a tapestry of nuance and meaning. You each grappled for your identities, your names fading in the shadows of ambition. But what if there lay more beneath this animosity? Reginald, what if you truly acted in anger, not toward Henry, but in a wish to forewarn him of a more significant threat? At that juncture, Poirot identified a mirage he'd misjudged, a thread in which the character's darker motivations tangled amidst their professed innocence. Every confession that had emerged thus far swayed between the lines of conviction and self-preservation. With pulses racing, against the backdrop of brewing storms, Poirot consolidated his pieces. In a tragic twist of fate, Gerald, you sought to expose Henry's hidden truths. Alas, in this calculated mayhem, it may have been you who inadvertently spurred his death, a confrontation gone awry, perhaps. As Poirot's assertions crystallized, a blood-chilling silence enveloped them, constricting every breath. Reginald's gaze fell, shadows writhed, and a new layer of truth emerged. A throbbing wound laid bare in the crook of betrayal. Alas, Poirot's voice took on an elegiac quality. The leniency of human hearts begets perilous storms. Each of you is painted in shades of guilt. For what transpires in your deepest recesses, a turbid cocktail of emotion has driven your hands yet again. Indeed, the final twist beckoned. A revelation spiraled deeper into the fray of their entanglement. Lady Agatha's posture stiffened, an indignant cloak of bitterness enveloping her frustration. Murder is abhorrent, yet the stakes of legacy see us all entwined. Reginald, Gerald, you each possess a shadow of betrayal, yet it is I who acted in darkness to shield my ambition all along. It was I who pushed Henry to his end. Her admission was fraught with frailty, a tapestry woven of longing and despair, unfurling a haunting reality. The atmosphere crackled with disbelief. Poirot stood still a moment longer, observing the heaviness of their circumstances, understanding the darkness cloaked within humanity's desire to protect or deconstruct. In this tale of shadows, it is betrayal that forges the most profound tragedies, he declared, suppressing the petrichor of damp autumn air swirling in the room. For inherited legacies are fraught with poison, and the heart's deepest chambers often house the darkest fallacies. And the quiet of Carrington Manor, enveloped once more by storm, stood witness to an unfolding saga mired in anguish and heavy with dimensions of guilt. The shadows had spoken, the truth breathed a final, sorrowful breath, echoing long after Poirot departed, leaving behind only embers of broken trust, lingering in the folds of the night. Chapter 10. The Final Confrontation. A piercing scream sliced through the tempest outside Carrington Manor. resonating like a bell tolling for the dead. The flickering candlelight illuminated the distressful countenance of Lady Agatha as she clutched the tattered letter, her fingers trembling with urgency. "It cannot end like this," she wailed, glancing anxiously towards the shadows that enveloped the drawing room, as if the very walls bore witness to the unraveling tapestry of their shared secrets. The storm raged outside, each raindrop a reminder of the turmoil that had befallen them, as Hercule Poirot remained an unmoving sentinel, his mind a swirling maelstrom of analysis and intuition. "Ah, the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," he mused softly, observing the pandemonium that threatened to consume them all. Each gaze, each trembling expulsion of breath, held the weight of betrayal, a chorus sung in shadows. "Tonight shall reveal the deep-seated truths illuminated by the dim candlelight," he declared, stepping from the threshold, bracing himself against the chaos that beckoned him. Reginald stood stiffly in the corner, brimming with palpable tension, while Gerald fidgeted impatiently, casting furtive glances towards Agatha as she clutched the letter like a talisman of desperation. The room buzzed with the undercurrents of suspicion, an electric charge that left each character poised on the edge of revelation and despair. Reginald, consumed by long-suppressed envy, glared at Henry's lifeless figure sprawled on the floor, the crimson pool beneath him a dark testament to the bitterness entwined in their ambitions. Gerald's voice sliced through the silence, his words laced with contempt. "This is madness. Henry was always reckless, but to think one of us would dare to extinguish his life, an unforgivable sin." "Nay, Gerald," Poirot interjected, his voice calm yet commanding, holding the power to silence even the fiercest of tempests. "The sin is not in the act, but in the deeply layered emotions that blossom in its aftermath. Each of you harbors your own shadows, layers shrouded in betrayal. As we unravel this perilous night, allow me to pose a simple inquiry. What binds your hearts to this tragedy?" He strolled deliberately around the room, absorbing the subtleties. "Reginald, your devotion to Beatrice, you believed Henry a rival robbing you of love. And Agatha, your burning ambitions have lent you a ferocity to shield your aspirations, yet diminish your own humanity. Then there is Gerald, whilst your disdain presents itself overtly. Tell me, what grievances run deeper?" As the storm lashed the manor with renewed ferocity, Poirot's discerning gaze ensnared Gerald's apprehensive expressions. "You speak of loyalty, mon ami, yet your eyes tell a different story. Reveal your intentions, lest I unmask your duplicity." A bead of sweat trickled down Gerald's temple, betraying the artistically sculpted facade he so clung to, reeking of arrogance born from entitlement. "I sought only to protect our family's legacy. Henry was a fool, content in his recklessness, yet I could not stand idly by," Gerald thundered, his bravado cracking under the weight of Poirot's enchanting gaze. Yet, amidst his outburst, a flicker of uncertainty betrayed his supposed righteousness, igniting Poirot's curiosity. "Interesting. A familial legacy you so fiercely protect. A notable sentiment. And if Henry posed a threat, would you not wish to confront him rather than leave him to his devices?" Poirot pressed, snaring Gerald in his web of words like an adept spider. But even as each character's revelations unfurled, Poirot sensed the currents diverging. The ambient storm did little to mask the inner tempest brewing within each soul, and a notion blossomed. A clandestine letter sat heavily in his mind. Henry had received correspondence days prior, an invitation of sorts from a mutual acquaintance, one that carried with it the promise of revealing secrets so carefully concealed. Perhaps these very whispers had motivated Henry's recklessness. Lady Agatha, Poirot pivoted, his attention narrowing like a falcon descending on its prey. This letter you possess, the one you so tightly grip, holds significance. It is a link between you and this tragedy. What words were inscribed in its depths? What secrets lay buried, waiting to be revealed? He stepped closer, watching as her expression flickered like the candlelight, a dance of vulnerability and wickedness woven together. They were words of despair, she whispered, her demeanor taut as a drawn bowstring. Henry threatened to share the legacy's hidden truths, that our entwined ambitions were built on fractured foundations. I could not let him what, Agatha? Poirot prompted, an edge to his voice. Expose your own deceit. Was it you who paved the path toward his end? The silence that enveloped them was instantaneous, the air thick as they held their collective breath. The clock ticked incessantly, each second intertwining their fates further. Gerald seized the opportunity, desperation leaching into his words. We all have sins. Perhaps the answer lies more profoundly within us, internal struggles born of loyalty and ambition. We've been puppets, unaware of the hands that guide our fates. Just then, a figure appeared in the shadows. Beatrice, her visage an ethereal apparition, wrapped in quiet despair. You speak of loyalty, yet you've all failed to see the bigger picture. Henry was a mere pawn in a game of much larger stakes, as if this legacy wasn't larger than you all. Her outburst reverberated through the charged atmosphere, drawing attention from all sides. Poirot's mind whirled. There lay a red herring, a latent threat, masked beneath layers covering their intertwined desires, yet one truth rang crystal clear. Betrayal at the highest level fueled the fire of death that had extinguished Henry's light. A game, it seems, that had foreseen every outcome, he mused, his gaze piercing through each body, absorbing the nuances of their crumbling facades. As he pieced the enigma together, a chilling realization resonated. The letter had never been merely a threat. Rather, it had been a guiding force, predicated upon betrayal, woven with desperation. In a dramatic twist, Poirot turned back to the maid who had first spoken of Henry's argument. The implication of her innocence now fractured with the weight of truth. What did you truly hear? What secrets dilute the air between these walls? I saw Henry and Lady Agatha arguing, yes, the maid stammered, her face pale as she recalled the details that had slipped her mind. But before it happened, he threatened to erase the legacy that bound them, called it a prison. Agatha merely sought to reclaim her influence. Poirot's heart raced with the conviction of discovery. In an almost serpentine motion, he addressed the room again. The legacy, a web intricately spun, with shadows and harsh light. But who amongst you wielded the true dagger, masked beneath the desire to protect oneself? Was it Agatha, or perhaps Gerald, driven by hidden resentment? No, it was none other than Reginald, who acted against his own affection, driven by his heartbreak. Reginald stumbled backward. A heartbeat echoed through the silence, left in the wake of Poirot's revelation. I did not intend. I never wished him dead. I sought only to warn him of matters that lay beyond the grave. He whispered, anguish painting his face, as he unveiled the ultimate twist, an emotional betrayal that left the room curdled in disbelief. Poirot's eyes bored deeply into each victim once more, his voice aching with muted sorrow. In this tragedy, every soul bears its burden, a cross woven of ambition, love, and betrayal. It will not be your ambitions that determine your fates any longer. Rather, it is the truth that shall bind you, a horrific reminder of the price of aspiration. As the weight of Poirot's words settled over them, silence once more enveloped the room. The storm outside began to subside, and in its wake stood a powerful yet brittle stillness, the shadows whispering the consequences of fragile hearts intertwined within sin. And with this final confrontation, Poirot took his leave, his presence lingering like a melancholic echo, a regained soliloquy drifting softly through Carrington Manor, the grand estate forever stained with the conflict of shadows and the fading remnants of once passionate dreams now buried in darkness. Chapter 11. The Unraveling. The scream sliced through the suffocating silence of Carrington Manor like a renewed winter's chill. Lady Agatha's anguished wail echoed off the damp, ancient walls, drawing the attention of everyone in the drawing-room. Poirot stood still as a statue, his keen eyes narrowing. Something was amiss in the turbulent currents of humanity surrounding him. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured quietly to himself, the flickering candlelight casting strange shadows across the faces of those present. The scene before him was one of unfurling chaos. Reginald, still shaken from the revelation of his unintentional role in Henry's demise, gripped the mantle with both hands, knuckles white, his every breath steeped in agony. Gerald paced the room like a caged animal, his fidgeting only heightening the tension that hung thick in the air. And then there was Agatha, who clutched the remnants of her ambition, the tattered letter, not as a tool of power, but as a weight of despair, threatening to drag her deeper into the abyss. "Pray, allow me to propose a question to each of you," Poirot began, his authoritative voice slicing through the frigid atmosphere. "What binds your hearts to this tragedy? Is it mere ambition or something darker?" He ventured their faces intently, seeking out the faintest flicker of truth amidst their veiled emotions. "Enough with your riddles, Poirot," Gerald snapped, rekindling the tempest of anger he had tried to suppress. "We stand on the brink of madness. Henry lies dead, and you toy with our emotions as if they are mere strings sewn into your tapestry." His voice trembled, revealing fractured nerves laid bare by fear and rage. Poirot remained calm, his demeanor unwavering. "Madness, yes, but perhaps lurking behind it lies a calculated motive. Each of you harbors desires that could blind you to reason." He paced slowly, his sharp gaze drifting over each character, dissecting their fears, ambitions, and hidden animosities. "Reginald, your jealousy twisted in the wake of unrequited love for Beatrice, unrequited even before her tragic fall. You sought Henry's demise, an end to your rival's existence." Reginald's eyes flared with indignation. "I would never—" The words halted mid-sentence as guilt danced in his features. Poirot observed the nervous way Reginald's hands trembled while he masked a shroud of resentment. "Yet," the detective continued, "it was not mere ambition that drove Lady Agatha to clutch the letter to her bosom. Ah, no. You, Agatha, saw the revelation of your deepest, most sordid secrets captured within those words. Henry, a puppet, poised to unravel the legacy you so fiercely protect." "Leave me be, Poirot," she hissed, as anger flashed across her face. "Your insinuations are a veil for your own incompetence." "But, mon ami, it is precisely my competence that bears me the clarity to discern your true intentions." Poirot's voice wrapped around her, unease like a velvet ribbon, drawing her closer into his web of scrutiny. "Gerald, I have observed your ocular ailments. Oh yes, the way your eyes dart, laden with veiled guilt. You clung to the facade of duty, hoping to preserve your family's legacy, yet hidden jealousies thrived within you. Gerald clenched his jaw, forcing words out through a tight smile. You know nothing of my motives. I have always acted in the best interests of this family. Ah, then why not be forthcoming about the letter's contents, my friend? Poirot pressed, his voice laced with an unsettling calmness. What secrets did Henry wish to reveal? Was it the venomous truth residing within you that would topple even the strongest of legacies? Just then, another figure emerged from the shadows. Beatrice, her demeanor somber, an ethereal presence against the backdrop of intensity. You think this is merely an affair between you three, content in your bitterness? Henry was a pawn in a larger game, blinded by his own ambition, perhaps even— Enough of this theatrics, Gerald interrupted, his voice a storm. Henry paid the price for his recklessness. Are we to fault ourselves because he could not control his personal follies? Perhaps he was not the only reckless fool, Beatrice replied sharply, her eyes aflame with desperation as she shifted her gaze toward Agatha. You cannot keep hiding behind your ambitions. They are a shroud, a veil too thin to veil your guilt. This last outburst only fueled Poirot's analytical fire. Indeed, a web of entangled ambitions, riddled with shadows and dire betrayals, he observed. Yet one truth eludes us. How swiftly these accusations lead us astray. Reginald, Gerald, could it be that neither of you crafted the final blow? That the true architect of this tragedy lurked far closer, hidden in plain sight? Agatha's gaze hardened, her thoughts racing beneath the surface. Whatever secrets lay sealed within her heart were digging deeper roots into her conscience. I would never, she began, only to falter, her breath hitching in her throat. I am not who you seek. Ah, but the very act of your denial speaks volumes, Poirot said, his voice penetrating the thickening tension like a dagger. Each of you is linked to this tragedy by threads spun from the loom of deception. But what if I late discovered a thread unspooled, entirely unexpected? With that, he strode purposefully towards the grand clock, its relentless ticking transforming into a heartbeat of the manor. It was amidst the tumult of your shifting truths that I discovered the true architect, he continued, for I had noticed, between the shadows and the light, a peculiar scent of deceit lingering in the air. Within seconds, Poirot's detective instinct led him back to the tattered letter. Its ink, slightly blurred from a hastily soaked overlay, bore a distinct twist, a mark less from ink and more from desperation. Lady Agatha, he exclaimed suddenly, you concealed more than mere ambition. The letter was not what it appeared. It was a desperate plea, a redirection of blame meant to protect the true culprit. Agatha's mouth fell open, the color draining from her face as the implications settled in the air like bitterness. Nay, it was not I. Ah, but it was often the deceived who were blameless, Poirot asserted, for the noblest of intentions could conceal the darkest truths. Tell me, what lies behind the curtain of loyalty? Would it be perhaps Reginald, burdened by heartbreak, discovering the letter, or one who holds all the pretense in their hollow hands? The room inhaled sharply, all eyes darting toward Reginald, whose averted gaze betrayed emotions held at bay. I heard him, he whispered hoarsely, voice cracking beneath the weight of revelation. He intended to reveal the sordid history connecting us all, a legacy filled not with glory, but betrayal. Yet who would dare cross that line? Poirot mused out loud. What was truly at stake here? They watched as the rush of betrayal cut through the air, revealing the flaws in every relationship, every ambition, once entwined with love. With cascading revelations now spilling forth, the true pernicious nature of their motives unraveled like threads from a woven tapestry. Poirot turned, his realization cascading upon them with a blade of sharp clarity. "Reginald," he called. "No, you are not the guilty party you might have believed yourself to be, nor was Gerald, for the truth lies in the word loyalty, a word that harks only to those drowning beneath the weight of expectation." As the ramifications unfolded like petals from an opening bloom, Poirot's finger pointed decisively, emanating finality. "It is you, Beatrice. Beneath the guise of shattered femininity lies the truth, a betrayal so profound it echoes within history. Your jealousy towards both Agatha and Henry pushed you to orchestrate the tragedy from the shadows." Gasps filled the room as Beatrice's resolve crumbled, a myriad of emotions flashing across her face, with anger, sorrow, and the personal acknowledgement of her darkest secrets surfacing. "Poetic justice indeed," Poirot whispered, a haunting knowledge in his tone, "for no ambition is worth the destruction it promises." And as the storm outside grew restless, the finality of Poirot's conclusion settled over them like a solemn shroud, whispering of consequences in the hushed echoes of the manor, leaving only shadows to mark the gravitas of shattered trust amid the spectre of betrayal. In the dim light of the aftermath, Poirot's final words lingered, an echo of truth in the heart of night. In the pursuit of glory, how swiftly we may lose our very humanity. Chapter 12. Shadows of the Broken Heart. The night was cloaked in an inky darkness, punctuated only by the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the jagged edges of Carrington Manor's crumbling facade. The air thrummed with an electric tension, as if the very walls of the estate were holding their breath, anticipating something dreadful. Lightning split the sky once more, revealing the silhouette of a figure standing motionless in the drawing room. Beatrice, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with terror and disbelief. The scream that rang out was muffled by the tempest outside, but it was unmistakably a cry of despair. Henry's twin obsessions of love and ambition had found their grim conclusion. As Poirot entered the room, his presence was like a balm on raw emotions, though even the great detective could feel the weight hanging in the air. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he whispered, a frown creasing his brow as he took in the tableau of grief and guilt before him. The flickering candlelight cast shadows across the faces of the suspects. Reginald, his expression a mix of horror and relief. Gerald, his brow slick with sweat as he raked a hand through his hair. And Agatha, veiled in a shroud of furious denial. Each appeared like marionettes in a tragic play, bound to a string they could not see but felt keenly, the strings of desire, jealousy, and lingering loyalty. "Alas," Poirot intoned quietly, breaking the silence, "we must understand that within sorrow lurks the shadows of ambition once unbridled. The motive for murder rests not solely in anger, but more deeply within fractured hearts." The room echoed with his words, a promise that mysteries had yet to be unfolded. The crime had not merely claimed a life, it had cast an insidious web across their intertwined souls, threatening to suffocate. As Poirot began his methodical investigation, he approached each of the men, delving into their minds with his piercing gaze. "Reginald, you found yourself the unrequited admirer, didn't you? But perhaps your motives were not simply envy. Your heart, broken, I sense you've longed for a different outcome. His querying eyes locked onto Reginald's as the man shifted uncomfortably under the detective's intense scrutiny. I loved her, yes, Reginald stammered, the agony rippling through his frame like a tangible force. But I would never harm Henry. It is enough that I feel this pain. I would not wish to add to it. Poirot nodded slowly, digesting the depth of the young man's emotion. Yet, consider the tangled web of love unfulfilled. Perhaps it gnawed at you far more than you realize. And what of you, Gerald? A cousin, a close confidant, yet loyalty can twist under strain. Gerald's sneer was immediate, though it lacked conviction. Henry was a fool, and if it were not for his reckless ambition, we might have seen a far better outcome for our family. This is absurd, Poirot, insinuating that I would have a hand in his demise. I have acted only in the best interest of Carrington. Poirot leaned closer, taking note of the flicker in Gerald's gaze, the rapid pulse in his throat. Your loyalty is admirable, but with love comes a treacherous darkness. Hidden beneath your diligent facade lies a tempest of despair and disgruntlement, does it not? Just then, Lady Agatha interjected, her voice sharpened to an icy edge. "And what do you think you know of me, Poirot?" she demanded, shadows dancing across her face as she clutched the remnants of the letter as if it were a lifeline. "You presume to understand the ambitions that define us. Do you not see? I have sacrificed everything to uphold this family's legacy. If anyone was entangled in our troubles, it was Henry, not I." "Ah," the words dripped with emotion, Poirot acknowledged, though the facade could bend but never break under scrutiny. "Each of you, so entangled in the darkness of your hearts, concealing secrets that scream louder than even this." "Storm," he murmured almost to himself before he turned back to them, a faint glimmer of determination igniting in his chest. "If we are to uncover the truth behind this lamentation, I must plunge into the depths of buried sentiments and unspeakable actions." With that, Poirot began weaving through the stories spun by these individuals, each woven with lies, desperation, and an insatiable thirst for acknowledgement. He surveyed their interactions with pinpoint precision, the rising tension, accentuated by the storm's relentless drumming against the windows. Hours passed, and the air thickened with uncertainty. A dark suspicion cast its net wider, ensnaring Reginald as Poirot revisited their earlier conversation. "Is it true, Reginald? You declared undying love for Beatrice, and that love twisted into a resentment toward your rival. Might you have found peace in Henry's absence?" "He was a fool, yes," Reginald bellowed, leaning forward as if the volume of his words could drown out his pangs of guilt. "But I would never—" "Yet what if behind your fervor for Beatrice lies a deeper wound, a hidden aspiration, an obsession driving you to rid Henry from your life, if only to claim what you believed rightfully yours?" Poirot's eyes bore into him, searching for a flicker of truth amidst the layers of deception that cloaked them all. Noticing the turning tide within Gerald's expression, Poirot seized the opportunity. "Gerald, I have discerned your behavior. Your eyes flit about, the room like trapped moths seeking light. But what truth do they find beyond the chaos of their fluttering?" For a fleeting moment, Gerald hesitated, his defenses crumbling under Poirot's keen observation. "Henry was a burden to us all," he shouted as frustration boiled over, sweat cascading down his temples. "He squandered our family fortune on his reckless pursuits, and yet he sought to expose us, expose me. Do you think I would stand by as he threw our legacies aside in favor of his posturing. Brilliance? The storm outside had morphed into a tempest of accusations, and Poirot, always the patient maestro, considered the discord among them. Yet a deeper truth wove itself into the shadows lurking in their hearts, concealed yet pulsing with life, a truth that none wished to confront. As the hour descended into darkness, it occurred to Poirot that a red herring lay just beneath the surface. "Perhaps you are not to be blindly blamed for this tragedy," he murmured, engaging each with his composed intensity. In emotional turmoil, one can ensnare their image of loyalty into fragmented shards of betrayal. And Beatrice, he turned to face her, has the facade of innocence concealed too many secrets. Thunder echoed in the background as Beatrice drew herself up with indignation. "I have nothing to do with this madness. It is Henry's ghost who resurrects these past grievances. I was ensnared in his machinations." But Poirot pressed further, his demeanor unwavering. "Do not deceive yourself with the notion of innocence, Beatrice, for it was you who held the key to the manor's emotional secrets, and a crushing desire to maintain power obscured your judgment." The air crackled with tension as he took a step forward, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial hush. "I have surmised that the true orchestra of this tragedy was played by none other than yourself. In your quest to elevate your status, you orchestrated this grand finale of betrayal, draping yourself in the guise of sympathy when ambition's dagger lay poised beneath." Gasps erupted from each corner of the room. Beatrice's eyes flickered with a cocktail of recognition and rage. "You son of a—" she spat before betrayal doused her fury, the sobering reality gripping her. Indeed, the fragility of love does often hold within it naught but despair, Poirot concluded, a sense of melancholy trailing his words. As the early dawn light pierced through the storm's remnants, revealing their worst nightmares tucked beneath the pretense of loyalty, he glided toward the grand clock, its ticking a reminder of the ceaseless web spun by human ambition. "Remember, my friends," he declared softly, "in the pursuit of glory, how swiftly we may lose our very humanity." Each character stood there, burdened by the weight of revelations and the very real shadows of broken hearts that littered the ground beneath them, now forever intertwined with betrayal.